Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Shubham and today I'm going to talk about the rheumatic disease. So let's begin with the question number 110. Autopsy of a dead woman has shown morphological manifestation of left atrioventricular aperture stenosis and mitral valve insufficiency. Histologically detected a focal cardiosclerosis and Aschoff-Talelef's granulomas. Now what is a possible diagnosis, right? So guys, the most possible hint which could be given in this question is Aschoff-Talelef's granulomas. Actually these are the Aschoff bodies, or you might say granuloma. They are found in the rheumatic myocarditis, if I will say. In the rheumatism you will be studying about the Jones criteria, and you will be, that is a major criteria, and you are having the minor criteria. For an example, increased ESR, increased CRP, prolonged PR interval. These were the minor criteria of the rheumatic fever, right? So in the rheumatism, one of the major complication of the rheumatism was the heart complication, in which there might be the pancarditis, right? All the layers might be affected, or there can be pericarditis or myocarditis or endocarditis. One of the complication inside the heart was related to the myocarditis, and inside the myocarditis, what major problem you might see over there, that is the Aschoff bodies or Aschoff granuloma. Okay, so they will be found in the rheumatic myocarditis. Okay, so what are these Aschoff bodies, or what are the Aschoff granulomas? So I have inserted an image for the better explanation. So look over here, you can see easily that this one over here, which I am marking right now, this is the finding of the Aschoff body. Okay, and inside them there are the nucleus, which you might appreciate on further zooming. For an example, this is one of the nucleus. Okay, so these are separate nucleuses over there, and inside them a specific kind of appearance might be seen over there, which I will show you in few minutes. But these kind of appearances, these are appearances like caterpillar. You might have shown the caterpillar. Okay, so these are like the caterpillar, and we are calling them as Anishko cells. Okay, so I will be showing you those kind of cells as well, but please remember over here that how it looks, Aschoff body. So this is the appearance of the Aschoff body over here. So these are the cells which I will finding. These are the granulomas, right? These are the granulomas containing various kind of cells over there, and various typical appearance of the nucleus inside them, which are having the caterpillar nuclei inside them. So they will be having this kind of appearance, which is present over here right now on your screen. Okay, so this is the Aschoff bodies found in the rheumatic myocarditis, so please remember about that. So over here, what is the most possible diagnosis? That will be the rheumatic myocarditis, and among the given option, that is the E option, which is given over here. So they gave the option of rheumatism. Okay, rheumatism, or you might write over there rheumatic myocarditis as well. Okay, that will be more specific. So that is the rheumatic myocarditis. Okay, rheumatic myocarditis, isn't it? So that is the case over here. Fine, let's move on to the next one. Question number 111. A histological examination of the mitral valve shown, so mitral valve we are studying, shown a mucoid swelling, endothelium damage, and fibrin thrombi formation on the covering margin. Right now, what form of rheumatic endocarditis is observed? So look guys, they said that there is the mucoid swelling and the fibrin thrombi formation, very important over here, on the covering margin. Mitral valve they are studying. Look, whenever we are studying the mitral valve, or if there is some kind of inflammation in the valves specifically, we are giving that kind of term, that is the endocarditis. Okay, pericarditis is the inflammation of pericardium of the heart, myocarditis is the inflammation of the myocardium of the heart, and endocarditis is the inflammation of the valves of the heart. Okay, now it doesn't matter which kind of valve is involved. For example, it can be aortic valve, or it can be a mitral valve. I mean that it can be atrioventricular valve, or it can be semilunar valve. So that is the endocarditis term, inflammation of the valve. So over here, mitral valve is having the problem, mucoid swelling is seen over there, which means there is endocarditis. They are saying which kind of rheumatic endocarditis you know, I told you that one of the complication of the heart as far as rheumatism is concerned is the endocarditis as well. I told you the pericarditis, myocarditis and the endocarditis. In the previous question I told you the myocarditis complication, that was the Aschoff granuloma. In this question I'm going to tell you the endocarditis problem. So over here, you know, polyps are some kind of thing, you know, they are protrusions coming out from any kind of surface. So these protrusions will be coming out from the mitral valve sometimes. As far as the complication of rheumatic heart disease is concerned, if they are coming out from the mitral valve surface, we are calling them as acute polypus endocarditis, okay, because some kind of polyps are coming out. So over here there is a gross finding of the valve over here, that is a mitral valve. So this appearance I'm talking about right now. So this is the appearance, okay. So over here you can see several kind of polyps. However, the image is not that clear, but several kind of polyps are coming out over here, and these are the vegetations coming out from the mitral valve of the left atrium. Of course, you know, the position of the mitral valve is present between the left atrium and the left ventricle, so that is the position. So over here this is the appearance which you will be seeing if the polyps are coming out, several kind of vegetation coming out. So this is a rheumatic endocarditis. In the rheumatic myocarditis, please remember about the Aschoff granuloma or the Aschoff bodies. In the rheumatic endocarditis, please remember about the polypus endocarditis, okay. If they will be talking about the SLE, systemic lupus erythematosus, we'll be discussing in few minutes. But if they will be talking about the SLE, then which kind of endocarditis you might appreciate over there, and in that case your answer should be the Libman sac endocarditis, okay. So please remember about that, you may note it down that as well, okay. So in the SLE they will be asking you, then that will be the Libman sac endocarditis. If they are asking you in the rheumatic endocarditis, then that can be the polypus endocarditis. One more thing I would like to add over here, that if they are mentioning about the ulcers as well in the question, for example in this one they didn't mention about the ulcers, if they will be mentioning about the ulcers as well in this question, then your answer might be in that case is the E option which is given over here, that can be the endocarditis polypus ulcerosa, which means ulcers are also present over there, okay. If they're mentioning about that, in this particular question there is nothing about the ulcers, so I'm going with the A option over here, that is the acute polypus endocarditis, okay. I hope you got my point in this question as well. Let's move on to the next one. Question number 112. A pathomorphological examination of a man who died of cardiac insufficiency has shown that mitral valves are deformed, thickened and joint margins. Nodules consist of fibrinoid necrosis. Areas are diffusely scattered in the connective tissue. Macrophagocytes that look like giant multinuclear cells accumulate around the nodules. Lymphocytes and single plasma cells surround the similar focuses. What granuloma has been detected? So if you will be looking this question very carefully, then look, they are talking about the mitral valves again, and the mitral valves are deformed over here. Fibrinoid necrosis was seen, fine. Macrophagocytes, guys, so you know macrophages, what is the function of macrophages? They are responsible for the phagocytosis process, look like giant multinuclear cells, okay. So again, giant multinuclear cells, and they are mentioning about the nodules, okay. So these nodules which they are talking about is, again, they are the Aschoff nodules, and Aschoff nodules was the finding in the Aschoff granuloma, okay. So they are having what? They are having the macrophagocyte, means like a lot of macrophages will be present over there, which they will be doing the phagocytosis process, and due to that in the myocardium, so due to that there will be the formation of the Aschoff granuloma, okay. So that nodule they are talking about, that is the Aschoff nodule, and these giant multinuclear cells, they are the caterpillar cells or the Anichko cells, okay. Let me talk about them with the help of an image over here. So look at this image on the screen right now. So this is the, I told you already that this is the Aschoff, this is the Aschoff body, isn't it? This is the Aschoff granuloma, rather I should say, okay. This is the Aschoff granuloma. So this is the Aschoff body, which you can see inside it there is the area of fibrinoid necrosis, okay. Now inside them there are several kind of nucleus, which I told you in the very first question of this video. So you know there is a cells which are called as Anichko cells, okay. They are the Anichko cells, and they are having the enlarged macrophages, isn't it? They are having the enlarged macrophages, okay. So this kind of cell, this is the Anishko cells, they are having the nucleus such as caterpillar, okay, such as caterpillar, isn't it? So it gives the resemblance of the caterpillars. Okay, in older time pathologists were very imaginary. Okay, so what kind of image they were seeing in the pathology slide, okay, they used to correlate with the real life things. Okay, so at that time they thought that it looks like caterpillar, so they gave the name of the caterpillar over here. So these are the Anishko cells found in the Aschoff body. A for Aschoff body, A for Anishko cells. They looks like the caterpillar, they gives or they resembles the appearance of the caterpillar, so they are also called as caterpillar cells. What structures do they have? That is the macrophages. Okay, so please do remember about that as well. Okay, so Anishko cells are the appearance for the Aschoff body seen in the rheumatic myocarditis again. So what will be the answer over here? That will be the rheumatic again, isn't it? I hope you got the clear, I hope you got the point very clear over here. Question number 113. Autopsy of a child who died of cardiac insufficiency has shown the dilated cavities of the heart. So they talked about the cardiac insufficiencies, and microscopically they were detected hyperemia, edema and diffuse infiltration of the histiocytes, lymphocytes, neutrophils and eosinophils. Okay, so various kind of cytokines present over here in the myocardial stroma. What is the most possible diagnosis over here? So guys, as far as myocardium is concerned, as they're talking about the myocardium over here, right, myocardial stroma, as far as myocardium is concerned, I told you about one point, that was in the, as far as rheumatism is concerned, they're talking about the rheumatism over here because they're talking about the cardiac insufficiency, and you know, lot of cytokines are actually invading into the myocardium. So look, what happens is, in the as far as myocarditis is concerned, rheumatic myocarditis, it is having basically having the presence of two major structures. Okay, one is the granuloma, granulomatous myocarditis, which you can easily appreciate with the help of the Aschoff body, Aschoff granuloma, which is having the Anishko cells resembling, having the macrophage inside them, doing the phagocytosis over there, resembling the caterpillar appearance, right? So that's clear about that one. That is the first point, Aschoff body. Second one is they're having the interstitial myocarditis. Okay, the full name is the non-specific exudative interstitial myocarditis. Non-specific, or you might say the diffuse. Okay, one and the same thing. So non-specific exudative interstitial myocarditis. Exudative means some kind of pus formation, some kind of bacteria might be there which are invading over there, and you know very well that in the rheumatism which kind of bacteria it might be. Yes, that is the streptococcus, isn't it? That is the streptococcus. So group A beta hemolytic streptococcus. Okay, so that is the bacteria that can cause this kind of problem over there. So in this non-specific exudative interstitial myocarditis, what happens is that it is having the diffuse or focal lymphohistiocytic infiltration. Very important point over here, lymphohistiocytic infiltration. So if in the question they are mentioning about the lymphohistiocytic infiltration in the myocardium, okay, in the myocardium, then that means they want to know about the non-specific or the diffuse exudative interstitial myocarditis. If they are talking about the Aschoff body, if they are talking about the macrophages, if they are talking about the Anishko cells, okay, these kind of things, then they are talking about the rheumatic myocarditis, then they are talking about the Aschoff body mainly. But right now they told you about the histiocytes, lymphocytes, neutrophils, eosinophils infiltration. Mainly the lymphohistiocyte infiltration are seen in the non-specific exudative interstitial myocarditis. So over here they gave the option of diffuse intermediate exudative myocarditis. I'm talking about the B option. So that should be the answer over here. And how you can recognize this one? Because of the histiocytes and the lymphocytes infiltration. Main things are this one. The lymphohistiocyte infiltration in the myocardium will be seen in the non-specific or diffuse intermediate exudative myocarditis. Okay, moving on to the next one, question number 114. Autopsy of a 25-year-old woman who died of uremia has shown enlarged mottled kidneys with hemorrhages. Focuses pathologically, they were detected hematoxylin corpuscles, glomeruli, capillary membranes in the form of wire loops. Okay, hyaline thrombi, fibrinoid necrosis, bulbous sclerosis in the renal vessels. So a lot of hints are given over here to diagnose this particular kind of situation. So first of all, let me tell you what is uremia. Uremia is a sign of kidney failure, which means the products which should be present in the kidneys, for an example creatinine, for example the nitrogen, azotemia kind of situation. So these kind of products of the kidney are seen in the blood. So that means kidney is showing the kidney failure sign. Kidney is not able to work over there, so that is the uremia. So kidney failure is happening over here, and mottled kidney was seen in the autopsy, and hemorrhages focuses was seen in the autopsy. So kidney was actually damaged very severely. Hematoxylin corpuscles or hematoxylin bodies. Now look guys, hematoxylin bodies are the finding of the lupus nephritis. Yes, I am talking about the SLE only. One of the complication of the SLE. Look, SLE actually invades many kind of connective tissues, many kind of organs are involved over here. One of the organ is kidney, and inside the kidney it causes the lupus nephritis, and you must know the particular signs which can be appreciated in the lupus nephritis as far as autopsy is concerned. So in this autopsy they said the hematoxylin corpuscles are found over there. So hematoxylin corpuscles are found in the SLE. Okay, lupus nephritis, hematoxylin corpuscles or hematoxylin bodies. Now glomerular capillary membranes in the form of wire loops, second main point over here, which is, so two main points, I have highlighted them in the boxes. So hematoxylin corpuscles, first one, and second one is the wire loops. Okay, now what is this wire loop? They are called as lupus cells. Okay, we will be talking about that. Further, hyaline thrombi are seen over there, fibrinoid necrosis are seen over there. So this kidney has been severely damaged. So this is the case of lupus nephritis. So what is the possible diagnosis? That is the lupus nephritis. If they didn't give the option of lupus nephritis, then you can go with the SLE actually, because that is a complication of SLE only, isn't it? Okay, SLE, or you might have the answer as lupus nephritis. Okay, now look how the hematoxylin bodies looks, okay, and how the lupus cells looks, and what are these wire loops. Okay, these are the three questions. So what happens is, after the death of the cell, for example if we are talking about the kidney, after the death of the cell, the nucleus of that cell, it actually disintegrate into the granule, and that granule is called as the hematoxylin body or hematoxylin corpuscle. Okay, so this phenomenon is typically seen in the SLE or the lupus nephritis actually. Now what happens after that, the neutrophils and the macrophages, they will try to phagocytose, or they will try to kill this hematoxylin body, and in order to do that they will form the lupus cells. Okay, so first of all there was the formation of the hematoxylin bodies or hematoxylin corpuscles. After that the cytokines will be invading over there. Which kind of cytokines I am talking about? I am talking about the neutrophils or the macrophages. The function of them are very clear, that they will do the phagocytosis over there. Okay, so they will phagocytose these hematoxylin bodies and they will form the lupus cells. How these lupus cells looks now? These lupus cells are looking like this. Okay, so that's why these lupus cells are, we are calling them as wire loop lesions. Okay, we are calling that as what? Wire loops. Okay, so this is the appearance of wire loop over here, which you can appreciate right now on your screen. So this is the wire loop lesion. Let me highlight for you. So this is the wire loop lesion. Okay, I'm talking about this region. Okay, so you can see over there, inside it you might appreciate with the blue color and all these things. I'm talking about these kind of things, right? These blue colors and all these are the macrophages, mainly macrophages and neutrophils. They're actually trying to phagocytose the hematoxylin corpuscles, isn't it? So that's why we are seeing the wire loop lesion. Okay, or you can remember that with the help of this thing, that wire is, this actually looks like that wire is having so many loops. Okay, so it looks like that. That's why we are calling that a wire loop lesion. Okay, so you can remember it like that as well. So this is the appearance of the wire loop lesion. Okay, what is actually happening? Hematoxylin bodies, they're actually phagocytosed by the help of macrophages and neutrophils, and we are getting this kind of structure. This is the wire loop lesion, or also called as lupus cell. Actually seen in where? That is the finding of the lupus nephritis, which is one of the complication of SLE. Okay, enough about this one. Now let's move on to the question number 115. Autopsy of a 40-year-old woman who died of uremia. Again guys, I told you what is uremia. That is a kidney failure. Has shown enlarged mottled kidneys. Again the same question I guess, with the glomeruli thickened capillary membranes in the form of wire loops. Again they are talking about the wire loops. It can be lupus nephritis. Fibrinoid necrosis, focus on its walls, hyaline thrombi and hematoxylin corpuscles of the nuclei, and heart affected by Lehmann endocarditis. I have already told you that it is the finding of the SLE, isn't it? So they are talking about the SLE. So no doubt about that they are talking about the lupus nephritis. no doubt should be there in your mind right now. Okay, so that is the lupus nephritis. Let's move on to the next question. Question number 116. Autopsy of a dead 19-year-old woman has shown polypus endocarditis of all the valves, focal subendocardial hemorrhages, ulcerous stomatitis, esophagitis, pneumonia, okay, nephritis. Okay, so I told you in which kind of pathology, in which kind of problem you might see the damage of the several kind of connective tissue disorders, you know, that will be the, again, yes, that will be the SLE, isn't it? So look, they are talking about the problem of the, first of all they told you about the endocarditis. Which kind of endocarditis we will be seeing in the SLE? That is the Limb-Burn's endocarditis. Second thing, subendocardial hemorrhage over there, okay, ulcerous stomatitis, the problem of the mouth, esophagitis, problem of the esophagus, pneumonia, problem of the lungs, nephritis, kidneys are involved. Then they said that hyperplasia of the spleen, problem of the spleen over there, perivascular sclerosis is seen over there, vasculitis, blood vessels are involved, necrosis in the thalamus area, brain is involved. So many kind of organs when you are saying are involved, they are the complication of the SLE. Okay, one of the complication we have already talked about, that was the lupus nephritis, and we talked about the hematoxylin bodies over there, we talked about the lupus cell over there, we talked about the wire loop lesion, isn't it? And now we are going to talk about the one of the complication which is present in the spleen over here, in which you might appreciate the onion like lesion in the spleen. Okay, so I am talking about onion like lesion or onion skin lesion you might see over there. So that is seen in the hyperplasia of spleen I am talking about, which I have highlighted over here with the in the box. So that is the image which you can see right now on your skin. That is a onion skin appearance. So you can easily appreciate this appearance, isn't it? So you must have cut the onion, okay, while cooking. So while you are cutting the onion, you can see this kind of loops, isn't it? Okay, these are what? These are the onion skin lesions. Okay, so I will remove these markings so that you can easily appreciate. So these are what? These are the onion skin appearance, onion skin lesion appearance, which will be seen in the SLE as far as spleen complication is concerned in the SLE. Okay, onion skin lesions will be appreciated in other structures also in the pathology itself, but if we are talking about several kind of structure involvement, if we are talking about the hyperplasia of spleen, that kind of structure might be appreciated over here. That is the onion skin lesion which will be appreciated in the spleen over there. Okay, so actually what happens is in the spleen there is a perivascular fibrosis, and due to that this onion skin lesion will be appreciated for in the spleen, okay, for the SLE, isn't it? So the answer will be very, very clear over here. That will be the SLE, that is the systemic lupus erythematosus. Okay, I hope you are clear with this one as well. Now let's talk about the next question over here. After supercooling, a patient has joints deformation, painfulness, restricted finger movements, restriction of finger movements, little nodules were appeared during around the joints. Biopsy shown focus of fibrinoid necrosis surrounded by the histiocytes in the nodules. What is the diagnosis over here? So in this case, you know, they're talking about the joints deformation, they're talking about the nodules. Okay, so that can be the rheumatoid nodules, and finally they talked about the fibrinoid necrosis which was surrounded by the histiocytes in the nodules. They are talking about the rheumatoid arthritis, because in the rheumatoid arthritis we can see several kind of nodules which are called as rheumatoid nodules. You know, there are two kinds of things, rheumatoid arthritis and the osteoarthritis. In the osteoarthritis there will be the finding of the you know, Bouchard knot and the Heberden knots. Okay, in the distal joints you will be seeing the Heberden knots, and in the proximal one you will be seeing the Bouchard knot. But over here I am going to talk about the rheumatoid arthritis. Over here also there will be the knots, there will be the nodules which we are calling them as rheumatoid nodules. Remember, in the rheumatism, in the Jones criteria you talked about the subcutaneous nodules, okay, JONES as for the subcutaneous nodules, but over here I am talking about the rheumatoid nodule which will be the finding of the rheumatoid arthritis. So look over here, rheumatoid arthritis over here. So you know, this kind of appearance, you know, swan neck deformity will be seen, and the Botnier deformity can be seen over there, you know, of the PIP and the DIP. PIP means proximal interphalangeal joint and distal interphalangeal joint. So these are the distal interphalangeal joint, these are the proximal interphalangeal joint, isn't it? So that is the finding. So this is the finding of the rheumatoid arthritis, in which you can see the swan neck deformity and the Botnier deformity which can be found in the rheumatoid arthritis, and you can see the finger deviation. Okay, it looks horrible. So mostly seen in the older age people, this one, but you know, in some cases it can be seen in the children as well, but mostly is a problem of the older age people, and usually it involves the smaller joints. Okay, and if the rheumatoid arthritis is actually getting severe, then it may involve the larger joint as well, but initially it starts with the smaller joint, as you might see in the in this image as well. That is the proximal and the distal interphalangeal joint. These are actually the smaller joints, right? So your answer will be very, very clear over here. That will be the rheumatoid arthritis, isn't it? So yes, that was about the discussion of the rheumatism. Now let's move on to the lungs, and let's start with the discussion of the acute pulmonary disease. Okay, let's move on to the question number 118. So a 45-year-old man ill with pneumonia. On the 6th day of the disease, a pulmonary edema developed and caused death. Autopsy has shown that upper part of the right lung is totally affected and enlarged, solid with fibrinous pleural thickening. It is of grey color on the cut surface. Turbid fluid drains from the cut surface. Microscopically, they said the alveolar lumen, there is fibrin, neutrophils, macrophages, they are lacking the erythrocyte. What kind of pneumonia they are talking about? Okay, so a lot of things are given over here, very long question, but you need to pick the important points over here. They talked about the pulmonary edema, but the most important thing is over here. They said that macroscopic finding and the microscopic finding, these two findings you need to look for in the question when you are talking about the pathomorphology. So look guys, they talked about the microscopic finding, that was a alveolar lumen, there is fibrin. Okay, fibrin is seen over there, along with that cytokine, neutrophils, macrophages and all these things. So macroscopically what they said, upper part of the right lung was affected, enlarged, solid with fibrinous. Again fibrin is coming. Macroscopically also fibrinous inflammation is seen. Microscopically also there is a finding of the fibrin. This is the case of fibrinous inflammation, isn't it? They are talking about the fibrin. Macroscopically fibrin, microscopically fibrin. So they are talking about, they must be talking about the fibrin. Which kind of pneumonia is also called as fibrinous pneumonia? Answer is there. That is the Croup-Bush pneumonia, or also called as lobar pneumonia, also called as pleural pneumonia, isn't it? So four names are there. Hint is itself inside the question that fibrin finding is seen in macroscopically and the microscopically. Four names: Croup-Bush pneumonia, also called as lobular pneumonia, also called as fibrinous pneumonia, also called as pleuropneumonia. Okay, these four terms you must remember as far as this kind of pneumonia is concerned. Okay, so fibrinous inflammation will be seen, fibrin is finding in the Croup-Bush pneumonia. So this is the Croup-Bush pneumonia, okay, because of fibrin finding. Now in the Croup-Bush pneumonia itself, first of all, what are the causes? There are the bacteria. The most common and most important bacteria which can cause the lobar pneumonia, that is the pneumococci or Klebsiella. Okay, pneumococci or Klebsiella pneumonia. Okay, now 4 stages. Traditionally this progress of the disease is divided into 4 stages. What are these 4 stages? Congestion and edema, first one. Second one is red hepatization, third one gray hepatization, and fourth one resolution. Now starting with the first one, congestion and edema. So first stage is, it actually predominates in the first day, in the first 24 hours. There will be the congestion, you know, congestion will be seen in the lungs, and the edema will be seen in the first 24 hours. Okay, because the process of the pathology starts over there. Okay, so some kind of fluid will be accumulating inside the pleura, because I told you pleuropneumonia, isn't it? That is the other name, synonym of this lobar pneumonia or the Croup-Bush pneumonia or the fibrinous pneumonia, isn't it? So first stage is the congestion and edema. It will be appreciated in the first 24 hours, first day. Second one is a red hepatization. That will be seen after the second day, when this congestion and edema is actually proceeding towards the severe stage. That is the red hepatization, second stage. I will be providing the notes, don't worry, I will be providing the notes as well in the description box below. You can give a read over there as well. Okay, you can make your own notes from there. So first stage was congestion edema, second one was the red hepatization. That will be appreciated in the second day. It will be describing the lung tissue which will be having the acute exudates. Okay, they will be containing acute exudate means pus kind of formation. I already told you, if there will be the exudate, there will be the pus kind of liquid. If there will be transudate, there will be the clear liquid. Okay, acute exudate will be seen because they will be containing what? Neutrophils. They will be containing what? Red kind of cells. Okay, maybe some kind of RBCs can be there. That's why we are calling that as red hepatization. Okay, Now it is giving a red kind of color, good red foam kind of color, red kind of color will be seen over there. Okay, and the lobe of the lungs will be seen like the liver. Okay, third stage comes now, that is the gray hepatization, and that will be appreciated in 4 to 6 days. Now what will be happening, red cell will be disintegrating, and now what will be happening, that the remaining exudate will be converting itself into the fibrinous and the suppurative structure. So fibrin will be seen. For an example, in our question they mentioned about the fibrin. So which kind of stage are they talking about? If they are talking about the Crouper's pneumonia or the lobar pneumonia, they are talking about the gray hepatization. So let me write over here which kind of stage they are talking about over here, that they are talking about the gray hepatization. Why I am saying that they are talking about gray hepatization? Because they mentioned about the fibrin over there. They mentioned about the fibrinous suppurative exudate, isn't it? Because they said that turbid fluid drains from the cut surface and there was a fibrinous pleural thickening. Okay, pleuropneumonia. Fine. And they will be giving what kind of appearance? I told you in the red hepatization they will be giving the red appearance. In the gray hepatization they will be giving what? Gray appearance. So they will be giving the gray brown appearance. The gray brown gross appearance will be seen. And what kind of appearance? What appreciating? Gray color on the cut surface, isn't it? So they are talking about which stage? Gray hepatization, isn't it? So they are talking about the gray hepatization of this Crouper's or lobar pneumonia or fibrinous pneumonia or pleuropneumonia. Okay, several kinds of names are there. Then the last stage comes. So first stage was the congestion edema, predominates in the first 24 hours. Second stage was red hepatization, 2 days. Third was gray hepatization, 4 to 6 days. In the red hepatization, which color will be appreciated due to red cells? Red color. In the gray hepatization, due to fibrinous suppurative exudate, there will be the gray color. Then the last stage comes, that is the resolution. That will be seen in 9 to 11 days or after 9 days. Okay, 9 to 11 days, and there will be the stage, that is the final stage, in which that this exudate they undergoes the cellular degradation and the clearance from there. Okay, and finally the normal structure starts to restore itself. Okay, so that is the resolution stage. So 4 stages were there: congestion edema, red hepatization, gray hepatization, and the resolution. Okay, so that was about this question. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Question number 119. Autopsy of 58-year-old man who used to have alcohol abuse for a long time and died at home has shown macroscopically the right lung is enlarged and the tissue is of grayish color. Fine. Pleura is covered with grayish membranous layer. Microscopically, what they are saying? Microscopically, they are saying that alveolar lumen contain fibrin fibers. Again, guys, fibrin fibers in the alveolar lumen. They are talking about what? They are talking about the Crouper's pneumonia, because they have already mentioned about the which kind of color? Its tissue is of grayish color. Pleura is covered with the grayish color, grayish membrane layer. So that is a Crouper's pneumonia. Pleuropneumonia, because they are talking about the pleura is covered. Okay, so that is the Crouper's pneumonia again, or that can be the fibrinous pneumonia, pleuropneumonia. Several kinds of names are there. Which stage they are talking about? If they are talking about the grayish color, then that will be the, again, that will be what? That will be the gray hepatization. So in this question also they are talking about the same stage that was seen in the previous question, that was a gray hepatization of the Crouper's pneumonia. So over here also answer will be the same, that will be the Crouper's pneumonia or any other kind of name. Okay, pleuropneumonia, fibrinous pneumonia, lobar pneumonia. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Autopsy of a man who had malignant gastric carcinoma and died of the cancerous intoxication has shown solid red gray distorted focuses that bulge above the cut surface in the low back part of the lungs. Microscopically, exudate rich in neutrophil were detected microscopically. The exudate rich in neutrophils were detected in the lumen and the walls of the small bronchi and the alveoli. So name the disease over here. So first of all, if you will be seeing this question carefully, he was having the gastric carcinoma, then metastasis happened, and due to the cancer intoxication he died. Then solid red gray distorted focuses bulge above the cut surface in the lower back part of the lung. He was having the gastric carcinoma, but he was found that person body showed that red gray distorted focus in the lungs. Okay, and inside the lungs, where microscopically they are telling you that exudate I told you that was the some kind of pus. They are rich in neutrophils detected in the lumen and wall of where? Very important, bronchi and the alveoli. If they're involving bronchi or alveoli, we are calling that as pneumonia. Pneumonia because of alveoli, broncho because of bronchi. So the combined term will be bronchopneumonia, isn't it? So that is the bronchopneumonia. Which kind of bronchopneumonia? They are talking about what? They are talking about the exudate rich in neutrophils. So that will be the purulent bronchopneumonia. So answer will be what? Acute purulent bronchopneumonia, isn't it? So I hope you got the point. So it is a acute purulent bronchopneumonia, right? However, this person was having what? This person was having the gastric carcinoma that metastasized towards the lungs, and then it involved the bronchi and pneumonia, and it caused the bronchopneumonia. Which kind of bronchopneumonia? That was the suppurative. That was the acute purulent bronchopneumonia or acute suppurative bronchopneumonia. Okay, in the serous one, which is the last option, serous one, they will be telling you about the some kind of clear fluid, but over here they told you the exudate one. Okay, if they will be telling you about the clear fluid, then your answer could be the acute serous, but in this case they mentioned about the exudate, so your answer should be the acute purulent or suppurative bronchopneumonia. Okay, so guys, that was the discussion about the rheumatism, and after that we have talked about the acute pulmonary disease as well. In the next question I will try to discuss the chronic pulmonary diseases. Okay, and with that we will be trying to discuss some other topics as well. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the discussion over here. If you enjoyed the discussion, then please hit the like button, make sure to subscribe the channel, please share it with your friends, and I will see you in my next video. And please drop your comment in the comment section below and drop your reviews over there, or if you want some kind of topic for which you're having some kind of difficulty, or you want me to record the topic, then please let me know in the comment section below about that as well. And I hope you are enjoying these sessions, and I will try to make the new video very soon. So with that said, I will see you in my next video. Thank you for watching this one. Until next time, bye.